Here's Mark Arnaldo. I'm filming from a gamer cave, and I am in conversation with Ted Alspach, the designer of One Night's Ultimate Werewolf, a game that I enjoyed very much. And before that, one of my favorite games of the last couple of years, which is The Resistance. Well, if you're wondering who I am the guy in the little window there. Maybe you don't see very well the games I'm placing out there, but here we go. So I'm the guy in the little window. Here's Marco, and there's the guy that you see here is Ted Alspach, who is on the other side of my computer, and has agreed to tell us a little bit more about his new game release that was released this year at Gen Con, which is, what's the name of the game again?
One Night Revolution.
One Night Revolution, that puts together, as far as I understand, because I haven't played the game yet, Ultimate Werewolf One Night and The Resistance. So it puts together two of my favorite games. I had heard about the game a little bit at Gen Con, but since those two games are some of my favorite ones, I wanted to learn a little bit more, and I thought that maybe you too, my viewers, wanted to know more. So thank you, Ted, for agreeing to telling me and my viewers a little bit more about the game.
Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I'm definitely the designer of One Night Ultimate Werewolf, but Resistance was designed by Don Eskridge, so that's not my game. But
You're right.
It is one of my favorite games.
So, can you tell us about the game in general? Give us a little bit of a sense.
Sure. The basic idea is you've got these rebels who are trying to basically, the rebels are the good guys, as always, and they're trying to prevent these government informants from infiltrating the rebels and getting away with the secrets the rebels are going to use to hopefully overthrow the evil, nasty government.
And so far, this is Resistance ground.
Every player is going to be either a rebel or they're going to be an informant. And again, there are two different teams here, and in the beginning of the game, they'll each get a card, they'll secretly look at it, and they'll learn which team they're going to be on. In addition, and this is one thing that's very, very different than Resistance, there are going to be 3 cards face down in the center of the table. No one knows what those are. There are always a number of rebel cards equal to the number of players in the game, and there are always 3 informants. The center cards could all be informants. They could all be rebels. They could be any combination, and of course, players could be one or the other. So everyone has this ID. And they're actually ID cards. These are actually kind of cool. They're cardboard cards. You can actually pick them up and move them around, and they're kind of heavy, and they have some heft to them.
So more like tiles, almost.
Yeah, they're really less. Most gamers would just think of them as big tiles, real big tiles, which is great. In Resistance you have cards, and One Night Ultimate Werewolf you have tiles, and both of them you have them for different reasons. And here you need these tiles to kind of have some more weight to them for the different things you do during the game. In addition to that, everyone's going to get a specialist card. And this specialist card gives you some sort of ability. There's a whole bunch of specialist cards in the game. There's 8 that come with the game itself that let you do everything from look at some other player's ID card to actually switch things out. So, for instance, maybe you're someone called the reassigner. You can actually reassign ID cards between 2 different players. So each player, regardless of which ID they have, has this specialist card, which gives them ability. One other thing that's really unique to this game is that some of the specialist cards, like this one here called the Signaler, there are different actions that you do or different capabilities based on what your ID is. So, for instance, the Signaler, if you're on the Rebel team, you're allowed to basically tap a person on your left or on your right on their shoulder. And during your night action, that just kind of lets those people know, hey, you're a good guy. You're on my team. However, if you're an informant, it's a little different. You're only allowed to tap another informant if one is sitting to your left or your right. If they're not, you can't tap at all. And it's those sorts of things that allow that there's a little night phase, people do all these actions, and afterwards everyone tries to figure out who the informants are. And it's that sort of thing where you have this mixture of the specialist functionality with the ID cards that really makes the game really interesting and gives you a lot of different ideas about what it could be, and there's always a lot of discussions. You can kind of unravel the truth and figure out who the informants actually are, or if you're an informant, trying to deceive people and prevent them from learning the truth so they don't know who you and your co-conspirators are.
So, if I understand, that seems to be, to me, a different thing from the Resistance and the other werewolf games in which the role, the abilities that you have are separated from your alignment. If you're a werewolf or a young werewolf, you can do certain things, but you cannot not be a werewolf. Here, actually, I see that there is a higher number of combinations. We definitely will.
Even in Resistance Avalon, where you have multiple roles,
Yeah.
the good guys are certain roles, the bad guys are certain roles, and
Yep.
they're limited to what they can do. And sometimes there's some duplication between the two, but for the most part, your role is your role, and it gives you a certain ability. So this is kind of the unique thing where you're taking the abilities and separating them away from the actual team alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes things a little more flexible, but at the same time, constrains a little bit as to what can be done or what could be done in terms of, like I said, with that signaler one. Well, if everyone suspects that you're the signaler and you didn't tap anyone to your left and your right, they're going to pretty much know that you're an informant. You're going to have to figure out how to get out of that situation. And by convincing people that one of the players on your left or right lied about that, by saying, of course, no, I was not the informant, and someone who says that is lying because of blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot you can do with that, and it opens up a lot of conversation right away. One of the other things that's really unique about One Night Revolution is that it has this forced information explanation at the very beginning, basically, of the game. After everyone wakes, after everyone's done their night action, everyone is required to take one of these specialist tokens. All the specialist tokens that represent the different specialist cards that are in the game are on the table. And in turn, from the controller, the player who went first, each player takes one of these and puts it in front of them saying, this is my specialty. This is exactly what I did the previous night. Of course, you can lie. You can take one that's not yours. You can take one from another player who's already taken one. You can do anything you want to with that. But right away, it starts the conversation as soon as everyone's taken their tokens with a lot of information on the table. Wow, you're the signaler. Who did you tap? And then they've got to say it with the person next to them, or they can say, I'm not going to say right now, and I don't want the person who was tapped to say anything either, to kind of wait for some more information before they give anything out. And because roles can be exchanged, your actual ID card can be exchanged, sometimes you want to hold back some information. So if that signaler did start out as a rebel, but he suspects he might now be an informant because someone changes his ID card, he's got to be really, really quiet about that and look to possibly implicate someone else in case he's an informant. He might want to go after actually someone that he thinks is a good guy so that his informant team does not get exposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely like the fact that there's information on the table that, forces players to already commit to something, because especially with new players, if you're playing with non-professional gamers like we are, or at the beginning, players can be a little confused. What do I say? Who goes first? And I play sometimes these werewolf type games with my students to show them things about game design or about negotiation, cooperation, things like that. And of course, most of them are not players. So one of the problems I encounter is, how do I get them started? So here, I guess that like in One Night, you will need sort of like a narrator. There are either like soundtracks that can be played.
You actually have an app. There's a free app that people use that actually it's a great app, and it takes you through the roles in a very specific order. One Night Revolution is a little different in that you don't need an app, because what will happen is, starting with the controller, which is the player that has their little token here that shows that they're the controller. They tell everyone to close their eyes. They say, informants, open your eyes, look for each other. Okay, informants, close your eyes. Then the controller, while everyone's eyes are closed, does his night action. When he's done, he says, task complete. The player to his left then does his night action.
Oh, I see.
And then it goes around in a circle around the table, and everyone does their night action. So one of the really nice things about this is that you don't have to worry about people making noise. There's no, I heard someone make a noise at this point from over here. I know that person's the seer, or this person must be a werewolf because there's some shuffling on the table during that right over in this area. You can't have that because you know whose turn it is, and anyone can touch the cards or just kind of move them around a little bit to kind of mask what it is that they're actually doing. When it gets back to the controller, because he had to go first and he has the least better information, he didn't see anything else that happened at that point, he gets to look at his own ID card to see if it's been changed. So then he ends up having the most information at the very end of that night round. And everyone knows he's going to do that, so they're going to be very careful if they switch cards. Quite often, people will try to make the controller an informant. They'll exchange his card with someone else's, turning him into an informant. And, of course, the controller will know that, and then they can try and somehow secretly signal to that person, yes, we're informants too, don't vote for us, just keep it cool, and let's go for this other person here. And that introduces this whole other little twist or layer of subterfuge that everyone is trying to figure out how to communicate and how to not get caught at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely welcome the fact that the night sequence is organized this way, because you may have taken the time to explain the game, everybody's excited, and the game is completely thrown off by the fact that one player has heard the next one make any noise. And I play music, I sing, I do all sorts of theatrics, but people can just, feel the movement of the air around them, like that person moved. You can't, we have the sixth sense, we might have inherited from our ancient ancestors, we can tell.
If you have bright lights in a room, you're usually not consciously aware of this, but you can usually feel the heat of those lights on your skin, you just don't think about it. When someone passes their hand above where the light's hitting, you can actually feel the difference in temperature, and of course everything's quiet, everyone's eyes are closed, and so that sort of thing can give you away. So you never have that problem with this game, because it's really clear whose night action is, and they could be moving all over the table. You have no idea what they're doing, if anything, and so there's no giving anything away at night. So that's kind of a cool thing, because usually a lot of the games that involve nighttime hijinks can have that. Even regular werewolf can have that, with werewolves pointing at people.
Yeah.
From one night to the next. Someone will say, "Oh, I heard some clothing move," or something like that. Well, here it doesn't matter if there's any noise, because there's going to be some noise, and you can actually have a little bit of conversation during the night with other people. They can be chatting away and talking about things and going, "Oh, I bet that's so and so," and there you go, informant, do this, and all sorts of fun things like that.
Oh, that's absolutely excellent. Yeah, I'm very pleased. I mean, I'm very happy, and I'm very excited to try it, because, the first time I see the cover and I hear the name, of course, my first thought, as a skeptic that I am, is like, oh, old game with new art. But of course, this is a complete reimagining of the one night idea, with some ideas from the Resistance. But that clearly there's been a lot going on. As you were designing it, were you thinking about the type of audience for this game being the same as One Night, or maybe more towards the experienced gamers? What are your thoughts about the target audience?
In terms of the target audience, I didn't think about the target audience as much as I thought of, here are these two games, and I like both of them very much. Of course, the one I've been working with, One Night Forever, and then a Resistance, which I've played for I don't know how many years, and I've really enjoyed it. But there are aspects about those games that, I didn't like as much. So, for instance, in One Night, we talked about you have to have an app, things go in order. You've got this thing where people in the very beginning of the day phase, they don't know what to say. It takes a little while, so a couple of games for people to actually open up. And by the time the conversation gets rolling, so it's time to vote, and then maybe you're out of time. So trying to solve those problems, looking at Resistance, sometimes it goes on too long. Sometimes it's not as much fun in Resistance, in my opinion, when you are the Resistance versus when you're a spy. I like being a spy. I love that. It's very much more engaging, and I think sometimes I actually give away that I'm a spy or Resistance because of my engagement with the game.
You're having too much fun. It's obviously you can tell you're having too much fun.
Yeah, and being Resistance is still fun, and you're still trying to figure things out, and you're focusing, but it's not quite the same. And so one of the goals here was let's make these two different factions. In this case, the rebels and the informants, equally have fun things to do. So yeah, it's great if you're keeping secrets as an informant, but let's give the rebels some fun activities to do besides just trying to figure out who the informants are. And so I think we succeeded with that, because you've got all these fun things to do. And it's also, in Resistance, one of the things is, one of the cardinal rules you learn, if someone teaches you or after you play a few games, is the Resistance can never lie. If the Resistance lies, they're gonna lose the game, or basically break the game for everyone else on their team. And in this game, you actually want to lie quite often as part of the rebel forces, because you don't want the informants to necessarily be that confident that their roles haven't changed and things have gone exactly the way that they've planned. So lying as a rebel is a really good strategy. And once you play it a couple times, everybody lies. But there's nuggets of truth, and you can usually parse that out. And the more you play, the more you'll figure that out. And this is one of those games like Resistance and like One Night Werewolf, where you get more information the more you play. So you play 10 games in a row with a bunch of people, there's this big metagame going on what they've done in past games and how they react in different circumstances. And that by itself is a lot of fun. That's really engaging.
Absolutely. That's one of the best things about these games in general. Is the game out already?
So there was, I think, what happened is Indie Boards and Cards flew some in specifically for Gen Con. I was very fortunate to get a copy, my designer copy. Yay! And they were showing it off there. I don't think they had very many, and I'm pretty sure it's going out to Kickstarter backers right about now, if it hasn't gone out already. And then it'll show up in stores after that at some point. It was really tight, I think. They were very excited trying to get it to show for Gen Con, and so they were able just to fly some in just for that. I know what that's like as a publisher. It's always that, you want to get everything to Kickstarter people, but at the same time, you got these big shows, which are really important, and you still need to get the product out. So I think it's out there in very limited quantities right now, but over the next couple of weeks, it'll start to appear everywhere.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Ted. It was a great talking to you, great conversation.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you.
Very nice to have you. Let me talk to you.
Absolutely. Bye.
All right, bye.